Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Most Important Seconds After the Pit. We're going to be discussing episode 8 and 9. And joining me today is my good friend, Keely.
We need that horn. Beep, 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 beep.
Yeah, well, I gave you pyros.
Thank you. I do appreciate
I gave you
that.
some pyros.
I appreciate it. Everybody
What
needs a
would
little
be-
fireworks.
What would be your theme song coming up onto out to the
We've
ring,
had
so to speak?
we've had that conversation, and it's "Crown" by Halsey.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
there you go. And you're
yeah.
just walking out, and you're pointing at people.
I definitely would have a crown. Definitely.
Yeah, and everyone's like,
Something a little
yeah.
gothic though, like not like Queen Victoria, like something a little bit edgier.
That'd be cool. So you'd probably have some like black and purple, like pyros and sparks and everything going out.
Yes.
And
Now you're thinking. Now
there we
you're
go.
thinking.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Friday the 13th today. So happy Jason Voorhees Day. you know, he's right now just thinking, just imagining he's like the camel on Wednesdays when he's like, hey, you know what day it is today? You know what day is today?
Hey Mike.
Yeah. Jason is like peeking out of corners like, hey, you guys, you know what day it is today? Scaring people in the woods, really. So happy Friday the 13th. We are back. Last week we skipped out on last week. We thank you for being back with us and joining in as always. But last week there was a lot of stuff going on, a lot of people traveling, and we wanted to take a break to collect some stuff because there were some things that we wanted to make sure we were not getting repetitive and all with some of the stuff, because then people are not going to tune in. We want it to be fresh. We want to throw some stuff out there for all of you to be able to consume and everything. And with the weather that was going on last week as well, I got stuck at the airport for over 24 hours, and I was awake for over 24 hours. That was crazy. I had been texting with Keely. She's like, why are you still there? I was like, I don't know.
And then you sent me like the apocalypse footage of the airport.
Yes. Oh my Lord. That was crazy. That was something that I had never experienced before. But what I can say in comparison to the Pit, like the show that we've been watching, every episode, it has been super packed, right? And there are people that are in gurneys just kind of sitting in different places. And then you've got the entire waiting area full of people as well. And that's how it kind of felt being in the airport. People are screaming, people are upset, people are crying. And there are some folks who are also saying, great job, keep doing what you're doing, just kind of giving some encouragement. But yes, me at the Atlanta airport, walking through the the tunnels where the trains are and stuff, taking people from gate to gate, it was just like the folks in the gurneys, but these are people that are plugged into the outlets in the like conveyor belt type walkways, and they're just sleeping. And I'm walking by, and I took like a 6-second video because I thought no one's going to believe me. Like, this looks crazy. So in comparison, it was kind of like that. But also for those who might be tuning in for the first time, Keely, what are we doing here? What is it that we do every Friday?
Oh, we just sit and talk. No.
Well, yes.
So we had this incredible opportunity from the Rapid SOS side. We were able to host an event in Pittsburgh at the Allegheny General Hospital where the Pit is filmed. And we were able to sponsor a event to just kind of spend some time with the heroes, the first responders, the healthcare heroes, and just spend the day there. And then afterwards, we were like, we just kind of like, the more we were interacting with everybody, the more they were super interested in the technology and what's out there and like field response and the pass off to the hospital. And we were like, hey, what if we talked about it and discussed like how this is all like that full chain of response, all of that interconnectivity? Because while some of these medical calls begin with, some of them are walk-ins to the ER, we understand that. But we also know that there's a lot of times where like these people that are making their ways into EDs are 911 calls. And it starts that far out, and then it goes all the way through up into sometimes the OR, into ICU, into all these places that, so there's like this connective thread that we got to see firsthand and spend the day with these people. So we decided, let's talk about it all the way from front to back. And we've had some guests here, and it's been really a lot of fun. And I'm glad that we've been able to do this and have that experience.
Yeah, it has been awesome, and talk about turning something into something out of nowhere. You and I given this task out of nowhere, and the first one, we're like, "We're gonna riff." And we did, and it was a lot of fun. People enjoyed it, and then, we like you said, we had some guests on and all, and we even had Dr. Rao come
Dr.
on.
Rao,
Yes, a couple
we're going
weeks
to bring
ago.
him back, everybody. We're going to bring him back. I
Yeah,
promise.
yeah,
He's going
that
to come back.
was that was a lot of fun to hear his perspective on, some of the needs and, just almost like a wish list, right? In a way with some of the things that he was talking about and some of the things that are out there already, through Rapid SOS too. So that was really cool to have him on and to experience that, but also to kind of fanboy a little bit, fanboy and fangirl as he's talking about just his life. But I think when we were talking with him live, but even before or after, it was before because he had to get off afterwards because he had a meeting. But I kind of got from him that what is my life? Like you had mentioned it best where, it's just a doctor, just doing what he does, and then out of nowhere got like a semi-celebrity type going with being on what was it that he said? It was some sort of promotional thing they were doing, right? Where his
Yep.
one side was his face and the other side was
And
Noah Wiley's
Wiley.
because Dr. Rao is the inspiration, for Dr. Robbie from the show.
Yep.
So
But imagine that. Like, how many times do we see these like characters in space that are based off of true people, and like you never get the opportunity to actually speak to the true person, and here we are with the opportunity.
yeah,
I met him while we were at Allegheny, and he was just so kind and so humble, and it was like he was super willing. He's like, oh, you guys need me to talk on a panel if I've got time, sure. Like, he was just so great. And when I kind of put this in front of him in an email, he's like, here are my dates of availability, and I was like, you're the best.
I know,
It
like, how cool is
really
that?
is.
Super down to earth and, just funny to talk with, and yeah, it was really good. Now, what we do with this show as well is we go through and break down some of the episodes, some of the parts of the episodes, and we stagger it. This one is 2 weeks behind now, so if you haven't watched episode 8 or 9, spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, and why haven't you? Why haven't you no, I'm just playing. I don't know what you have going on. I'm just joking. No judgment, no judgment. I'm just playing. But so
I'm lucky I remembered breakfast this morning.
I
So, like,
know,
hey,
right?
listen, I
Like,
understand.
you're like, "How dare you?" So we've got episodes 8 and 9 that we are going to be, breaking down, and, again, certain aspects of each episode in comparison to technology and just connecting, all of it together and stuff, and one of the main portions of episode 8 and 9 is now things have gone into, as you put it, Keely, the dark ages. There are red phones, there are charts, and one of the things that I loved the most was when everything went down, there was one person who took a picture and it all came out blurry and everyone was like, "Oh
I
no."
know.
But then there's another person who comes in out of nowhere and is there, and the person throughout the season has been, sarcastic here and there, throwing things, and she's smart and all, and talented, but it's this moment when you really know that you need her there because she has a photographic memory, and they have these whiteboards, and they're charting them, they're filling them out, and she has every single one of them memorized. I think it was even halfway through the episode, she was still
Still going.
telling stuff, right? Oh, man.
I
How
wish. I wish I had that ability, because there are some times where, like, I look at something and I'm like, what the hell did that just say again? And I have to like go back to it. And I'm like, I just read it. Or like you look at your watch and then you put it down and you're like, wait, what time is
Right. Yeah, and this is where it's almost in reverse a little bit because now there is no technology. Now you're going back, and I remember, and I'm sure you've had these moments as well. We're thinking back to our time in dispatch. For myself, I remember training someone, and we're sitting there, and our CAD system and everything goes out completely, and IT and everyone is scrambling to get it fixed. And I'm the supervisor on, and my newest, just I would say training, but she was just out of training, she is there on phones to my left, and she's like, "Ricardo, what do we do now if we don't have a way to enter all this stuff?" And I hold up a piece of paper and I hold up a pen, and she goes, "Are you kidding me?" And I said, "No, this is our failsafe. Like, this is how we do this. You write everything down that you're told, and you timestamp it. And when everything finally comes up, then we get the fun duty of having to enter it all in to each CAD call and having that." And I just remember the look on her face, and she goes, "I this can't be." And I was like, "No, dude, this is real."
this is happening. This is happening. I remember when I started
Mhm,
at very beginning of my career and we wrote a lot of our stuff down, right? Like it was like that was how you were taught
mhm.
to write it down and then get it into the CAD. And then there was like this shift in technology over time where like we were just having the capabilities of putting it right into the computer instead of having to write everything down. And I remember doing it once in front of my former trainer where I was putting it right into the CAD and she God rest her soul, but she used to hit my knuckles with a ruler.
Oh,
She
that's
was
old
old
school,
school.
man.
She
That's
was old
old school.
school. And she like tapped my, she never hurt me, but she like tapped my knuckles. She's like, you can't, you've got to write it down first. And I remember that being like the mentality was like, you have to write it down first. And the other thing that we didn't do is that we didn't throw out our notes. Like they went into a file. Like, so like don't doodle like the bad pictures of like your boss on your notepad. Like we wrote them down and we stuck them all in a file so that if anything ever came out of it or there was a loss of it didn't go away because we didn't trust the technology that we had at the time, right? It was new. So like they weren't convinced that like everything we were entering in was going to be captured. So they had this like this fear as we got away from the older CAD systems where you weren't really putting in notes and you were still handwriting all of the CAD incident numbers and the report numbers, right? Like it was wild that like we didn't trust the technology. So we were still writing it down, still hanging on to those like and I don't know when we got away from it. Like there's not a point in time where I can specifically be like somebody walked in and was like, stop taking notes. We're not saving those anymore. It was like there was still like a handful of people that still did it for a long time, and then other people who kind of like transitioned out of it without saying anything and it kind of fell to the wayside. But then I remember it going down one day and everybody was like, well, where's our notes? Where's our CAD stuff? Where's the old CAD sheets? And they still had them in a filing cabinet off to the side. So we all like made a mad dash to them so that we could like punch them and stick them in the book that we would save all this stuff in. It's just wild that like I lived through that time. It's like, holy crap, where we didn't trust technology and now all we do is trust technology.
Right, yeah, and I remember as well, we would have the little cards. We would have the cards, we would write in the address really quick, whatever incident it was, and then we would run it to the other side of the room to the person who was dispatching, but if they didn't have time, because we had a radio at each, console, the person on main radios would say, "If you got it, go ahead and get it because I'm running this other thing over here." So it'd be like, "All right, let me see who is available," and then, Allegan Central, Baker 4, go ahead, have call or whatever, and then you just start time stamping on that, and you just hang on to the card. But if you had time and the other person had time, you would just run across, give them the card, they would read it, and then go through the man, it's so
Right. And we used to have sheets of paper. So, like, you knew, and like, if you were working in tandem, right, you'd be like, hey, is 101 on something? Is Delta 2 on something?
Mhm.
Right. So, like, and you would have to like quickly glance at all your notes, or you just had to know. Or you had it up on a
Exactly.
whiteboard if you were lucky and somebody was able to like keep up with the whiteboard. That's if you weren't that busy on phones, right? Because everybody's doing everything. But like now you look at the hospital and they're back to the whiteboard, right? That's exactly what you would do. You'd go back and put it up like 101's here, or whoever, like whatever your districts are broken up. It's so crazy to think that we lived in that moment.
Yeah, and I think at one point too, if our CAD went down or something crazy was going on, but we still had the internet going on, I had created a Gmail account for the county. So all 4 of us could get on there, and I would open up a document so that I could type in real time and they could see it and they could type. So we could all type at the same time and have everything going on there, and then we would search for anything that was redundant and then take it out. Would double check, right, on all of it, but that was another way. But then again, if the internet went out, then it was back to paper.
Yeah.
Paper
If
and
if you were down, you were
yeah,
down.
yeah, if you were super down, yeah, there was nothing you could do. You would get a call and they would say, "So the people who working, they were digging a trench here in the county, area, and they hit a fiber line, so we're gonna be out until who knows when." I'm like, "Okay. Alright.
It's a,
It's a perfect Friday the 13th."
it's a right. Like, and that's like the it figures. And we were talking about it a couple weeks ago when we had Ben on. We were talking about like the one time that like I was just sitting in my office and I suddenly realized how silent it was. And I
Mhm.
was like, that doesn't feel right. So I got up very casually, walked into the room, and I was like, hey, when's the last time your phones have rung? And they were all like, you just see the color wash out of their faces because now they're all like, oh, oh, uh, right? So now it was
Yeah.
like, that was the moment we realized we were not getting inbound phone traffic. And it like typically you don't run it because there's so much redundancy built into the system now. Typically, you don't have that failure where it's catastrophic. This happened to be exactly what you said. They cut the fiber and we were never informed. We
Yep.
never knew. And I mean, and now like that was like that moment of like in time I didn't get the notifications. Now we're like, oh, there's a problem here, and directors and people who are working in a 911 system need to understand that there's an outage in their area because it's a problem.
Yeah,
you know
and this is when places with landlines as, your last resort, that landline is still working because it's not anything that's going over, voice over internet protocol or, any internet stuff. It is still that legacy hardline, and in one of the episodes, there's that red phone where calls are still coming in, and that is like a godsend. I mean, we had a phone as well in
so
dispatch,
did we.
one phone line, and if the radios went down, there was one channel that was always up, and it was the bypass, and I would have to, underneath my console, pull out, like a CB radio type, pull it out and go to, go to bypass and Elegant Central to any station and units, check-in, and then I'd be waiting and waiting, and then someone would check in, and they would go, "We're on bypass, we're clear." I'm like, "Okay, good," and so we would have to keep going on that
Suddenly
until
Dukes of Hazard
everything.
comes through your room. It's like
Yeah, exact Bo and Luke are good.
like
Narrator comes in, we're like, "What's going on?"
and
Uh,
that red phone. So
yeah.
we also had a red phone from our rescue squad to the dispatch center. So we had a hotline. But then you see the phone ring in this episode. And what did I do immediately? I was
Yes.
like,
Yeah, I saw
that's
your
not
face.
good.
I saw your face, and I was like, "Yep, something's going down." Yeah, and yeah, everyone looks at it, and yeah, you see the look on their face. I saw the look on your face and your response, and then it zooms into the TV, and one of the nurses that's there, he looks up and he's just like, "Oh no," and they're all coming here because they already have people going there from the other place that had that cyber attack that was going on. They have shut down all of their stuff just in case, and now they see on the TV that at a water park, one of their big slides has now collapsed, and all of those people are coming to them. And I said to you, I said, "We're gonna see the credits," and boom, it went
Boom.
black, and it was credits. I was like, "Dang it, man." So that that happening, it takes me back as well to, and this wasn't a mass casualty, it wasn't anything like this, but it was bad weather, and, there was, we had just got hit with a tornado warning, and I look over at my supervisor because I wasn't a supervisor yet, but she goes, I'm about to hit the sirens." And I said, "All right, man." I said, "Let's do this. Let's go." And I remember pulling up my sleeves because I was on law enforcement radio and she's on backup. Yeah, and it is super dark outside. And I said, "Let's do this." I said, "Bust it out, go." And she hit it and starts going. And as soon as that tornado siren starts going off, Christmas tree style, our screens, everything light up, and people are calling in. People are calling on the radio saying, we see something, and we're like, crap, man, like this is horrible. But there were three of us in there. No, there were four of us in there for the whole county, and we were rocking it though.
And that's like those are the events you can't plan for, right? And this isn't like you can have all the policies and procedures you want in place, but unfortunately your tornadoes and your citizens are not reading those books. So
Right.
like
Yeah.
you have to really plan, and think outside the box when you're going through these moments. And I remember, I have field experience as well as 911 experience. And I remember all of us on a Labor Day. We have a very big Labor Day celebration in our town. And I remember on Labor Day, like standing in the parking lot and the sky like went black. And then the moment we all kind of looked over and we're like watching this sky, and you just see like the sky open up and there's like a funnel. And as this is happening, one of our other EMTs comes running out of the building. He's like, "Everybody inside, there's a tornado warning." And we were like, "Tornado in New Jersey? Like what?" Right? So like it was so
You
foreign
said
concept.
Sharknado?
Yeah, right. So it was like, what? Like, what are you talking about? So, but I remember in those instances, and like everybody was outside. And this isn't something that our area is used to. Well, I guess we're more used to it now than we were, but now, not now. But then it was definitely like everybody was outside. Nobody had the wherewithal to like seek shelter. How do we do this? So the 911 center at the time was inundated because it's not only the calls that you're getting from the people who have maybe experienced something, a tree down, fire, wires down, whatever, but you're also dealing with people who are like, "I don't know what to do, and I'm calling you. Tell me what to do." And it's like, I don't have a protocol for this.
That
Right. And so like when you talk about, like when you think about it present day and like the protocols that are available to us, and like to link it to technology, the protocols that are available now are also because they were born from these moments of not really having the appropriate protocol or the appropriate information or the knowledge of what to ask in a situation. So now you've got places like Total Response who are like, "Hey, we thought about this. You know why we thought about it? Because we've seen the entire nation and we've seen something." So they're like, "Oh," it's like, "We've seen a thing or two." So, like,
right,
and
yeah.
and so they put it in place for you. So now you've got this incredible like backing where it's like, okay, we recognize that you are getting into, because we've got communicator, right? So communicators listening to all these calls come in. Now imagine if we just had that then, right? What this looked like at one time where everything was analog, and now we're making phone calls to places and trying to figure it out and trying to call the county because the county's the one that's going to have the information for us and what we're supposed to do and talk these people through. And they're like, "I don't know." But imagine if communicators are already listening and it's like, "Oh, hey, Total Response has a protocol on this. Would you like it?" And you're like, "Yes,
Right.
please. Yes, please." It's like, I need
And
that button.
that is exactly how we connect technology and a lot of the stuff that happens on this show. What is going on, making people safer together. It also makes me think about in Iowa. I've got a good friend out there. His name is Joe, and amazing speaker and trainer as well. But he is a director out of Iowa, and what they had hit over there that they never thought. just like you were saying, or like a tornado in New Jersey, they had a derecho in Iowa, which is basically like a freaking hurricane that hit over there. And I think so it was December 15th of 2021, but there was one that was August 10th of 2020, and it was really, really bad. But what I'm seeing here now, that I didn't know this, but so the gusts were exceeding 100 miles per hour, but also it caused over $1 billion in damage, dude.
Hey.
And I remember him telling me about, like, I didn't hear from him for weeks, and I was checking in on him and stuff, and he's sent me a message back. He's like, "Hey, brother, thank you for checking in on us. It has been really horrible. We will talk about this soon enough." And we did. He actually had a session on it and everything, but it's stuff like that. Is how are you getting ready for things like this? And if technology goes down, what are your plan B, C, D, all of that. But if you do have the technology still in place, what are some of the things that you're doing? And so in one of the episodes, there's a festival that is going on. I won't say what festival it is. You can look it up. Um, but we were talking about the potential for using technology to geofence, and for that area, I know that there's a lot of places that do that. So in this show, if they had like a partnership with a company in public safety or whatever, they could kind of work this out. And maybe that festival itself did have that, but they didn't have the connection to the hospital. Either way, what I'm getting at is, if they were able to geofence and they have phone calls for just that specific place, the hospital could be also more ready for whatever is going to be coming up during all that time, because they had people coming out there for heat exhaustion and just a lot of other things.
Right. And we're talking about what's coming up, right? We've got FIFA, we've got Sail 250, we've got
Mhm.
all of these 250th celebrations that are coming out. And those are big, major. We just had the Super Bowl, right? And like we were supporting at the Super Bowl for sure. And we were using a lot of real-time interoperability. And it was so that the agencies, not just the one that was covering the event, but the agencies surrounding, who would get that spillover
Mhm.
essentially, of anything that may be major that breaks out, right, is able to just in real time share that information back and forth, instead of having to be like, hey, did you get that call that's in section 202? Like, instead of doing that, it's showing you in real time how, like, hey, this is happening. We'll just use the stadium as example. Hey, it's happening at the stadium here. And it bounced. If it bounces to the other center, the center, who would be the responding agency, is still seeing that, and it's flagging words, and it's telling you, hey, this is coming and this is happening. And it's, that area can be geofenced, and it can be like, we can take a better picture of that area. But then outside of that, you also have these other agencies that are supporting, right? Like I what, since Katrina, God, I'm dating myself right now. But anyway, since like Katrina, we've talked about this like interoperability, right? And we always think of interoperability as like a radio,
Mhm.
and like, how can we talk to each other on a radio? But it, like, now the technology has expanded even beyond that, right? Now we're talking that picture, right, is bigger than just a radio. That picture is the phone call, the data, the all of the things that have once been out in space, that are in different silos. As I know that's the word that's like the company term. Like, there's silos of data that is out there that can support first response in a multitude of different directions. And it's like, when you think to the stone age of dispatch, where we started, that those weren't conversations we were having. We weren't talking about this. I was just talking to a friend of mine this morning about technology and how the advancement has changed in 26 years, right? Like, we all had Nextel at one point,
Oh,
and we thought that was the cat's meow, man. Like,
oh
we were
yeah, for
like,
real.
beep, beep, and it was like, but we would use that even on incidents and scenes, right? Because those were two-way talk points, where like, you could get that person if, say, you couldn't get a radio signal, but you were getting that. So it's like, this interoperability idea has been around for a long time, but now we're starting to pick up those pieces and saying, well, how do we make that such a connective thread where like that information is happening? And we we will have a special guest with us next Friday. We're just
Mhm.
working out the details, but we'll talk about that ability to like hit a button, get a response, and have all of that data from that response already pushing through to a hospital to alert teams. And we had talked about that with Dr. Rao. You
Yep.
know, if we're alerting teams in advance, like we are narrowing that golden hour. Like we're doing that for the patient. And that's the time that saves these lives. It's just so incredible to think that this in our lifetime, this has happened.
Yes. And, you mentioned Nextel, and I had one as well. This is not a Nextel, but just as an example, because
It
it
looked
it
about
could
that big.
I know, it was this big, and the one that I had flipped up,
Mine
so
too.
it was cool. So, I think what was really cool about it is, like, you as kids, you always love to play with walkie-talkies, so then as adults, you're like, "Hey, this kind of feeds my childhood, my inner child and stuff," and you just go, "Doop. Hey, man, how you doing? What's going on? Doop, doop. Hey, I'm alright. Doop. Okay." Like, that would be it, but it's like, man, that's cool. It's like instant connection, and because even, like, text messaging wasn't a thing yet, I don't believe, but it was all, like, just quick connect, and that ended up phasing out. But if you have a, smartwatch, there's a feature on there where you can do the same thing, and
It's
I
like
the only
Inspector Gadget.
Yes, yes, exactly. But the only
Talk to
reason
my watch.
I remember that one is because, an old coworker of mine, they were doing a presentation, and our boss told me to try to get a hold of them using that while they were doing it, and I said, "No, I don't want to get fired." He goes, "I'm the president, though. I won't fire you." And I'm like, "I still don't want to. I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to disturb the herd."
This doesn't feel okay.
Yeah, it doesn't feel okay, but it's always fun to come on here and chat. We're already past our 30-minute mark that we usually say that we're going to stay on, but there's so much good stuff to talk about in comparison to the show, the technology, the people, the connecting of everyone together, and it just always fun talking with you. But one of the last things I want to mention as we go into the wrap up of this week's most important seconds after the pit is there is a part in one of the episodes that really, really hit home for you and I. Because as we're talking about, and I see in the comments, there's a mention about copper lines going away. But what I remember is that even though there are copper lines going away and stuff, there's still redundancy built in as that being like one of the very last resorts, that is still there. It might not be something that you see or can use, but there is some redundancy there from what I've been told. But with that, we're talking legacy. And there is a person who ends up getting pulled in one of the episodes. I think it's episode 9. And she is a very well seasoned person who walks in, puts her purse down, and it's like just starts rocking the show. And this is important because there's a lot of times when people leave 911 and those folks, they take with them years of experience and knowledge. And sometimes, I mean, all the time, it's okay to reach back out to those folks. My old dispatch center, when we were so short staffed, we had some folks come back part time just to help us out. And they were, you know, they did want to do it. We were so thankful that they did, but it reminded me of that episode there where when everything new is going down, you bring in the legacy to continue everything working like a almost well-oiled machine. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, we were talking about this before we went live. She reminds me of Roz from Monsters Inc., where she's like, she's just going to come in and be
This
like,
isn't Roz, but the eyes are kind of similar.
yeah, she comes in there and she just like, she starts. And one of the things she says is, they're like, where'd you find those old cards? And she's like, in the same file I put them in 10 years ago. And
Yeah.
this is so true, because I was just talking about this, right? Like, you'd have to go and run, like, make a mad dash to the file, but like, there's a lot of times that these places don't get rid of that legacy stuff. And again, built in from the old timers who are like, we don't trust the technology, but it's like, it's okay to trust the technology and lean in on the technology that we have there. But like, these people, these ones that have started their careers like Ricardo and I, we're baby dispatchers, they bring this world of knowledge of how things, like that historical look of how we got to where we are present day, and why the technology is actually needed, and what it does for us to make us better dispatchers, better field responders, better hospital employees, right? Like, we know what the Stone Age looked like and how slow we moved with a lot of things, and how sometimes we couldn't find our callers. The Aliana data was great. Like, it was great. But when we started moving away and getting on cell phones, that became a big, huge hurdle for our dispatchers. And that was like, there's like this part where I remember asking my lieutenant at the time, I was like, did anybody think this through? Like, how are we supposed to find these callers now? Like,
Right. Yeah.
anybody think about this? And he was like, I'm sure they have. And they had. That's why you had phase two. It was getting us closer to our callers, but nothing like what we see today with rapid SOS, where we know where those callers are before that phone even rings. Right. So like, that's incredible. And that was the solve, right? Like, that was our biggest hurdle. But it's like, when you look at the legacy of that, there's a reason why this matters, and why you have to start leaning on some of those technology advancements, because we can tell you, and I know Ricardo and I have talked about my call that I live with in my nightmares sometimes. It's I still to this day don't know if that caller is alive or dead, right? Because I was never able to find that human. So like, knowing that and taking my words and saying to you, I understand that this advancement is hard, or maybe we don't want to trust it, or maybe this is a little outside, like, change sucks, right? Nobody likes the way things are, but they don't like change either, right?
Mhm.
But like, but I can tell you from my legacy standpoint, I can tell you, first of all, how to operate the system if it fails, but I'm also going to tell you why it's important that we keep moving it forward, why we service these systems, why we maintain these systems, and why we look to the next thing, right? Because it's going to get better as we are able to advance in AI. Our AI grows. I hate saying smarter. It very much humanizes AI. I'm
Mhm.
not trying to humanize it. It is not sentient. It is not going to become Terminator around here. Like, this isn't. One day we'll bring Martin V on and he will explain to you how exactly it works. It's not as scary as it sounds. And I know that it seems really scary right now, but imagine that assistance, right? Like, we were talking about the protocols that are available now with TR, and how it can listen to the words and offer you that protocol. You know what I had to do? I had to go over to a flip chart, find something that applied, sort of, and flip the chart to it, and then read off of a guide card, right?
Yep.
And that was if the guide card was in front of me. Because
Same.
there's a chance that, like, the other dispatcher in the room stole the guide cards earlier that day. And now I'm like on the phone, running across the room, grabbing it, right? But now it's all in front of you. And it's like, I think there's something to be said about leaning into the people who have been around for a while,
Yes.
leaning into that wealth of depth of knowledge that they have, show you the old ways of how things are done, so that if, God forbid, something doesn't work as it's supposed to, you're able to lean on that. But more importantly, to explain to you why that advancement is important and what you don't want for the future, right? Like, so there's a lot of things I loved about it, right? It was a simpler time for sure, but there's a lot to be said about the changing environments, our weather patterns, let's be serious, the world's not as safe, right? Like, so
Mhm.
all of these things that we're having big conversations about, like, mass casualty, um, connected vehicles, and things like that. Like, we're having all of these, especially in the way of the world now, and it's like, all of that information's available, and we're going to put it on our safety network, and we're going to pass it through to all of these field responders, and we're going to do really amazing things. I was talking to you earlier about a call that we had in my old center, and I happened to be standing there, and they requested a helicopter. Absolutely nobody in that room had ever dispatched a helicopter before. And it was like, I remember looking around the room and I was like, oh, guys. And I used to do it all the time. It was something
Oh,
that was
guys.
like, it was like, oh, guys, right? Like,
Like,
but, right. But I was an old timer, right? So this was a manual motion I had done in my sleep. But now, if I hadn't been standing in that room, you know what the really cool thing is? In many places, not in all, there's a helicopter icon. You push the button and it does it for you, right? Again, not available everywhere, but these are options that are now coming where it's like, it's not, it's helping you be that better dispatcher, and you don't necessarily have to rely on legacy. I love that we're calling ourselves legacy, by
I
the way.
know legacy. I was gonna say, yeah, it's that legacy piece. So those who are watching and listening, make sure that you have your main plan, your plan B, all of your backups put in, and if anything, lean on your seasoned slash legacy folks. Because one of the things that I mentioned before we went live is, and a lot of places have done away with this. Now it's within their actual call handling system that they're using, but there are still some centers out there that have that original TTY that you put the phone on top and everything and you're typing, and no doubt there's probably someone there who is seasoned, who knows exactly how to use it still, because they come from that time where everyone else is like, I don't know how. Hold on, let me look at the manual. Let me look at the manual. But that person is going to be there. Don't worry, I'll help you do it. Make sure you hit the GA for go ahead. I'll be watching you.
SK. But
Right,
again, like there's a whole generation of your dispatchers who don't know that. So teach
right.
them. Like
Yeah,
this is an opportunity to learn from each other. And I just think it's fascinating. And especially since those languages are still very true to this day. If you've ever used a interpreter that talks for you, or you've ever seen that, there's still it still exists. It's just that we've gotten better at bringing that data into a 911 center made it
yeah.
easier. But like, that's a great example. I remember we still had one that was like under a desk somewhere just in case. Again, just in case.
This has been so much fun. Thank you, all of you, for joining us. And every Friday, we'll be back next week. And as Keely was saying, we're working on a special guest, and that episode is going to be a lot of fun as well. You're not going to want to miss that. And so, for Keely and I, thank you all very, very much for joining us. It is super windy outside, so it's probably good that we're wrapping this up too, so that nothing happens with my current equipment. I would have some legacy. I have some backup stuff. It would be it would be over a different network, but we would make it happen
Oh,
because we come
okay.
from dispatch, and we just make it work. So thank you all again for joining us. If you ever have any questions about some of the stuff that we've been talking about, or that Keely has been talking about, Rapid SOS wise, or whichever, make sure to follow them on social media. They're all over the place on social media, especially LinkedIn. There's always stuff going out there, people commenting and sharing and everything. So make sure to reach out to them there, as well as rapidsos.com. And when it comes to the Pit, that streams on HBO Max, and new episodes air every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. It has been great. Have a good one, everyone.
As always.
Yes, we will see you all next week.